Are you seriously saying this? My dry voice echoed through the dining room of my childhood home, which was lavishly decorated for Christmas. Lying inside the expensive-looking envelope in front of me was a single, flimsy check. In the amount box, the words $200 were scribbled hastily. What exactly are you unhappy about, Amanda? My mother, Susan, let out an exasperated sigh. Beside her, my younger sister Rachel swayed in a brand new designer dress and gave me a spiteful smile. It's a gift from Grandma. You should be grateful and accept it. Yeah, Amanda. Why don't you use it toward the rent on that rundown apartment of yours? On my sister's finger, an absurdly large diamond ring sparkled. I let out a small breath. My name is Amanda, and I'm a real estate appraiser working in Manhattan with an annual income of $300,000. And yet, because of some mysterious low credit score issue, I can't get a loan approved and I'm still living in an old apartment. Thank you. I'll give her a call to say thanks. As I took out my phone, my mother's hand suddenly froze. No, there's no need to call. Grandma's already asleep. Her voice cracked and it was obvious she was flustered. My professional instincts immediately sounded the alarm. In real estate deals, when an intermediary refuses direct contact with the principal, there is always a concealed defect lurking beneath the surface. It's only 7 p.m. Ignoring her attempt to stop me, I pressed the call button and put it on speaker. Oh, Amanda, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. I just received the check. I said this while keeping my eyes fixed on my mother. Thank you for the $200. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. What? You must be joking. My grandmother's scream rang out, and my mother visibly flinched. I didn't send you $200. I instructed Susan to distribute $1.2 million from the trust as funds for purchasing your new home. Time stopped. $1.2 million and the $200 in my hand. The difference was $1,199,800. My mother went deathly pale and dropped the knife she was holding. My sister stood frozen, her mouth half open. Hang up, Grandma's senile. My mother lunged for the phone, but I dodged her hand. Senile? As a professional appraiser, I've seen through countless lies. The look on my mother's face at that moment was exactly the face of a con artist. Sorry, Grandma. The reception seems bad. I deliberately ended the call. With no concrete evidence, making a scene now would only allow them to brush it off as the delusions of an elderly woman. So what is this supposed to mean? When I asked, my mother's face visibly relaxed with obvious relief. I told you, didn't I? Her dementia is getting worse. There's no way she has $1.2 million lying around. Yes, poor Grandma. I played the role of the deceived daughter, grabbed my bag, and stood up. I'm feeling sick, so I'm going home. As I headed toward the front door, a stack of documents hidden behind the sofa caught my eye. What my sister hurriedly tried to conceal turned out to be a luxury furniture store catalog and a real estate company's property transfer documents. On the cover was a sticky note labeled Furniture List for New Home. The dots connected. The reason I, despite my high income, kept failing screenings, my unemployed sister's lavish lifestyle, and the missing $1.2 million. I pretended not to notice and quietly closed the door. Standing in the cold air outside, I pulled out my phone and accessed my company's investigative database. From here on, this was no longer a game of playing family. This was time for a thorough appraisal, one where my entire life was on the line. The next morning, I was in my Manhattan office. There was not a trace of lingering Christmas cheer, only the cold glow of a monitor illuminating my face. In my hand was an ice-cold black coffee meant to wash away the memories of the previous night. As a real estate appraiser, I have authorized access to every kind of financial database imaginable. From public property records to interbank credit investigation data, and even analytical tools used to trace illicit money laundering routes. Well then, shall we begin the appraisal? I tapped on the keyboard and first opened my own credit report. When I saw the number displayed on the screen, a dry laugh escaped my lips. FICO score 450. That number sits just one step away from bankruptcy. Despite earning over $300,000 a year, my credit profile had fallen to the same level as a heavily indebted borrower who had suffered serious financial defaults. I see. So this is why I kept failing apartment screenings. I clicked the mouse and opened the detailed report from the credit bureau. What filled the screen was a list of credit cards I didn't recognize at all. Amex, Visa, MasterCard. 5 cards in total. Every single one of them was maxed out to its credit limit. I opened the PDF of the transaction statements. What appeared there was nothing less than hard evidence backing my sister and her husband's sparkling lifestyle. 4 Seasons Resort Maldives, $15,000. The date matched perfectly with the timing of Rachel's honeymoon. Hermes Birkin, $12,000. High-end steak restaurant, $800. That bag she had bragged about on Instagram as a gift from the best husband ever, and that luxurious trip as well. None of it was paid for with her husband's income, but with my own social credibility, slowly carved away and consumed. My mother had abused my social security number, opened credit cards without my knowledge, and let my sister indulge freely. The collection notices were set to be delivered to my parents' house, deliberately hidden from me while the bills were ignored over and over again. I forced down the surge of burning rage with a swallow of cold coffee. My hands trembled with anger, yet my mind was as cold as ice. Next, I began investigating the trust my grandmother had mentioned. The Brooks Family Trust, established by my paternal grandmother 20 years ago. The beneficiaries were the grandchildren, including me, and the trustee was my mother, Susan Brooks. I accessed the trust bank's database and searched the transaction history. Using my professional access privileges, I carefully applied filters step by step, and then I found it. September 15th, $1.2 million transferred from the Brooks Family Trust account to the Amanda Brooks Beneficiary Distribution account. September 16th, $1.2 million transferred from the Amanda Brooks Beneficiary Distribution account to Sentinel Title Company. A beneficiary distribution account. I had never known such an account even existed. Digging further, I discovered the account had been opened on September 10th. Account opener, Susan Brooks, acting as trustee. Account holder, Amanda Brooks, beneficiary. Notification address, my parents' home address. Everything connected. Using her legitimate authority as trustee, my mother had opened a beneficiary distribution account in my name. From the bank's perspective, this was a completely lawful procedure. A trustee creates an account for a beneficiary and distributes funds. There is nothing improper about that on the surface. However, the person who actually controlled that account was my mother. All notifications were sent to my parents' house, and I didn't even know an account under my own name existed. Then my mother transferred the funds from that account as purchase money for my sister's house. How incredibly elaborate. This wasn't simple embezzlement. It was an extremely calculated crime that exploited a blind spot in trust law. I continued digging even deeper. Tracing the transfer records to Sentinel Title Company eventually led me to the property registration of the home that had been purchased. It was a mansion with a swimming pool located in an upscale residential area of Connecticut. The price was $1.25 million. Then I looked at the owner section of the registry. The moment I saw the names displayed there, I nearly crushed the mouse in my hand. Rachel Coleman and Jason Coleman. My sister and her husband. They had used the money that was supposed to buy my home to purchase a luxury mansion for themselves. And that wasn't all. In the mortgage lien section of the registry, there was an entry so unbelievable it made my blood run cold. Joint guarantor, Amanda Brooks. My name. It was clearly a loan taken out to cover closing costs and furniture expenses that the $1.2 million hadn't been enough to cover. And without my knowledge, I had been listed as the guarantor. No wonder. No wonder my credit score had fallen straight into the abyss. Debts I didn't recognize, missed payments, and crushing multiple liabilities. They hadn't just stolen my money. They had trampled on and exploited my social credibility. The very trust that is the lifeblood of my career as a real estate appraiser. This wasn't merely a family dispute. It was a parade of serious felonies, violations of trust law, forgery of private documents with official seals, wire fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. Crimes that would guarantee a one-way ticket to federal prison. With trembling hands, I downloaded the Displayed Property Registry PDF. There was no sadness, only cold, merciless anger and a hunter's exhilaration at having cornered her prey. All right, Rachel. I took out my phone and sent a message to Eric, a college friend of mine who specializes in digital forensics. It's been a while. I need you to dig up some dirty data for me. I'll make it worth your while. I'll put your entire life up for auction, along with that house. It was late on New Year's Eve when I heard back from Eric, my old friend who specializes in digital forensics. Amanda, brace yourself before you look at this. This goes far beyond just bad. The moment I opened the encrypted file he sent, my room, lit only by the pale blue glow of the monitor, was flooded with the pitch-black malice of my mother Susan and my sister Rachel. What Eric had obtained was the hard drive from an old laptop my mother had left abandoned at my parents' house. You said you were going to do a big cleanup in Mom's basement, right? You mentioned you were going to throw away that old PC, so I took it. It was shared family property, so that's not a problem, right? That was something I had heard from my mother last Thanksgiving. It's an old computer. I don't use it anymore, so I'll throw it away. Taking home a PC that had been used as shared family property before it was discarded is legally a gray area, but as evidence in a criminal case, it is more than sufficient. From that device, Eric had recovered deleted emails and files. What he found there was the complete record of Project Dream Home, the codename they had been using for what they had been carrying out since September. The first thing that caught my eye was the chat log. August 20th. Rachel. Won't Amanda find out? Susan. It's fine. If I open the account using my authority as trustee, it will look legal. All the notifications will be sent to our address. Rachel. Then we can really buy a house with a pool. Susan. Yes, Amanda is single. She doesn't need a big house anyway. September 1st. Susan. I'll pay Michael the notary $5,000 to cooperate. I'll write Amanda's signature myself. I've practiced it for years. Practiced it for years. A dry laugh escaped me. Among the deleted files was an altered image of my driver's license. The face photo had been replaced with a picture of me from high school and digitally modified to resemble my sister. File name, id-modified.jpg. Creation date, August 15th. And in the emails with the title Company Representative, there were painfully vivid exchanges laid bare. Then, in the next email, there was an attachment. File name, Zoom recording SEP 19 MP4. Eric had added a note that read as follows. You should watch this video. It's really bad. I clicked on the video file. What appeared on the screen was a Zoom video call interface. Sitting there was me, wearing a mask and sitting under dim lighting. The hairstyle had been made to resemble mine, but the shape of the eyes was unmistakably Rachel's. Ms. Amanda Brooks, correct? For identity verification, could you please hold your driver's license up to the camera? It was the voice of the title company representative. The me on the screen held up the altered fake driver's license. Thank you. Then could you lower your mask slightly so we can confirm your face? I hesitated for a moment, then slid the mask down to my chin. The lighting was dim and the camera quality had clearly been lowered on purpose, but the face on the screen was unmistakably my sister's, carefully made to resemble mine. There's no problem. Then we'll proceed with confirming the contract details. The video continued, but I stopped it there. I felt nauseous. My mother and sister had carried out the real estate transaction by impersonating me, with this level of meticulous planning. However, what cut into my heart the deepest was another chat log. October 3rd. Rachel. Mom, has Amanda contacted you? Susan. No, nothing at all. She still hasn't noticed. Rachel. Amazing. An account opened in her own name, $1.2 million moving around, and she doesn't notice a thing. Susan. She's always focused on work and never checks her own credit information, and she would never even imagine suspecting us. Rachel. We're family after all. LOL. Susan. Exactly. We're family, so of course we help each other. Rachel. But what if she finds out? Susan. It's fine. If that happens, we'll just say it was for tax purposes or a temporary name lending. I've already prepared the paperwork. Family. Staring at the screen, I let out a deep breath. To them, family was nothing more than an excuse for exploitation. With trembling hands, I backed up all the data and saved it to an encrypted USB drive. Then I called Eric. Thank you, Eric. This is more than enough evidence. Are you going to the police? Yes, but before that, there's something I need to do. Do what? I answered while looking down at the city lights outside the window. My job as a real estate appraiser. I need to inform the owners that their house has a material defect. That night, I didn't sleep at all as I organized the materials. Trust account transaction records, certified property registries, forged ID data, email logs, chat histories, Zoom video recordings, and archived snapshots of social media posts. I arranged everything in chronological order, added legal annotations, and compiled a flawless report. It was a death note designed to socially erase the person who had once been my mother, and the person who had once been my sister. The final warm place in my heart, the lingering affection I had held for my family, had gone completely cold. All that remained was a resolve as hard as concrete, cold and bordering on murderous intent. No tears came. The time for crying was over. Now it was my turn to send the invoice. And it would be an exceptionally expensive one. Even after the new year began and the Christmas decorations were removed from the city, December 25th had not ended inside my heart. I applied for paid leave and withdrew every last bit of my remaining savings. For the battle ahead, I would need the power of professionals. January 5th. I knocked on the heavy oak door of a law office in downtown. The man who received me was Arthur, an attorney who specialized in corporate law and violations of trust law. His sharp eyes behind silver-rimmed glasses and his cold, emotionless demeanor were strikingly similar to my own. I showed him the digital data I had gathered and the 78-page report. For 30 minutes, Arthur scrolled through the screen without saying a single word, then adjusted his glasses and finally spoke. Perfect. This alone is more than sufficient to file criminal charges. He continued as he flipped through the report. Abuse of authority as a trustee. This is a textbook violation of trust law. On top of that, embezzlement through misuse of a beneficiary distribution account, identity theft, and forgery carried out in collusion with a notary. If prosecuted under federal law, your mother as the principal offender would almost certainly face 3 to 5 years in prison, and your sister as an accomplice would receive 2 to 3 years. The bribery of a notary is particularly egregious. He would lose his position and receive a custodial sentence of more than 3 years. I looked out the window. Is this enough evidence to ensure that everyone goes to prison and that I recover the stolen $1.2 million? More than enough. Arthur smiled. However, if we add further physical reinforcement, it would be perfect. Physical reinforcement? Yes. For example, traces showing that your mother and your sister were acting with malicious intent on a routine basis. There is always a non-zero risk that digital data could be dismissed as hacked or fabricated. From that day on, my life changed completely. During the day, I shut myself away in libraries, devouring case law related to state trust law and real estate law. And when night fell, I put on a black hoodie and headed to 450 Oak Street, where my sister and her husband lived. Nights in upscale residential neighborhoods are quiet. Posing as a local resident, I approached their trash bins on the night before garbage collection day. It was dirty work. As a real estate appraiser, someone who is supposed to assess the value of buildings, I was rummaging through someone else's trash. A wave of humiliation threatened to rise up, but I clenched my back teeth and forced it down. There were results. Discarded credit card statements, torn up and thrown away. Printed on them were records of fine dining and luxury brand purchases, all charged to cards opened in my name. There was more. Shredded scraps, cut into tiny pieces by a paper shredder. I took them home and late at night, reconstructed them like a puzzle using tweezers. What emerged was a handwritten memo from my mother, Susan. Excuse list for Amanda. Grandma's dementia. A temporary name change for trust tax purposes. Amanda had verbally approved it. It was a family verbal agreement. They had even prepared scenarios for what to say if they were ever exposed. This would become irrefutable proof of a premeditated crime. At the same time, I also investigated the surroundings of the notary, Daniel Foster. He ran a modest office, but recently his lifestyle had suddenly become lavish. A brand new Porsche, frequent trips to casinos. I hired a private investigator and had him photograph Daniel meeting secretly with my mother. The moment my mother handed him a thick brown envelope at a cafe terrace was captured with striking clarity. The date was September 12th, 3 days before the beneficiary distribution account was opened. During the investigation, my mother called me many times. Amanda, how are you? You haven't come by at all lately. Her voice over the phone was as gentle as ever and just as hollow. I took a deep breath and answered while forcing a smile at my reflection in the mirror. Sorry, Mom. I've been put in charge of a really big project and I've been busy. I think it'll be wrapped up by spring. Oh, I see. Don't push yourself too hard. My mother knew nothing about the fact that she was already completely surrounded. After hanging up, I rushed to the bathroom and vomited everything in my stomach. She was still trying to take something from me. Fear turned into anger turned into disgust, and eventually it was distilled into a cold, emotionless task. Mid-February. All the pieces were in place. Trust account records, forged registry documents, digital forensic results, notes reconstructed from trash, photographs of secret meetings taken by a private investigator, and the thick draft complaint prepared by attorney Arthur. A total of 92 pages. I carefully bound it all together and typed, Project Truth on the cover. Everything is ready, Arthur said. When do you plan to report this to the police? No, not yet. I shook my head. The police move last. Before that, the parties involved need to be formally notified. In real estate transactions, a disclosure of material facts is essential. Notification? Where? At the next family gathering. I smiled coldly. My 30th birthday party is scheduled for next Sunday. Ironically, my mother and sister were using my birthday as an excuse to gather relatives for yet another party. They were probably planning to show off what a close family we were and ask for something else in the process. It was the perfect stage. I rented a projector and a screen and prepared the presentation materials for the day. The PowerPoint deck consisted of 50 slides. The title was My Family and the Whereabouts of $1.2 million. On the night before everything was set into motion, I quietly reached out to only one person, my grandmother, Natalie. Grandma, tomorrow's party might get a little noisy, but I really want you to come no matter what. Amanda, have you found something? There was a mix of hope and anxiety in my grandmother's voice. Yes, I'm going to reveal everything. I won't let your gift go to waste. After hanging up, I looked up at the sky outside the window. Snow had begun to fall. The following day, I would melt away all the lies that had piled up like snow since that Christmas night. I got into bed, but there was no way I could sleep with my nerves buzzing. A long, dark winter was finally coming to an end. The following day would be the day my new life began. February 20th, my 30th birthday party. The living room of my parents' house was decorated just like it had been 2 months earlier at Christmas, and the same familiar relatives had gathered again. The only difference was the massive screen set up in the corner of the room and the HDMI cable in my hand. All right, everyone, it looks like Amanda has made a nostalgic slideshow for us. My mother announced cheerfully. She was completely convinced that the materials I had prepared were nothing more than a family memory album. With champagne glasses in hand, my sister Rachel and her husband Jason had claimed the best seats on the sofa. I'm excited, Amanda. Did you include some cute pictures of me too? Rachel smiled in a cloying, ingratiating way. Yes, of course. I included plenty of moments when you were at your most radiant. I smiled back and dimmed the lights in the room. Silence fell. Holding the remote as if it were a microphone, I made a calm declaration. Then let us begin. The theme of today's presentation is the misappropriation of trust assets and the criminal liability that follows. The projector powered on and light was cast onto the screen. What appeared there was not baby photos. It was an enlarged record of trust account transfers. Transfer source: Brooks Family Trust Account. Amount: $1,200,000. Transfer destination: Amanda Brooks Beneficiary Distribution Account. Final recipient: Sentinel Title Company. Huh? A strange sound slipped from my mother's throat. Murmurs began to ripple through the room. I advanced the slides. Next appeared the certified property registry of the house where my sister and her husband lived, along with a flowchart showing the movement of funds. On September 15th, the $1.2 million that my grandmother instructed to be distributed to me passed through a beneficiary distribution account controlled by my mother the very next day. And on September 20th, it was settled as the purchase price for the property at 450 Oak Street. However, for some reason, the ownership was transferred to Rachel and Jason. Hey, Amanda, what kind of joke is this supposed to be? My mother jumped to her feet and tried to block the screen. Sit down, Mom. We're still in the introduction. I continued coldly and displayed the next slide. It was the photograph of my mother secretly meeting the notary and handing him a brown envelope. A date timestamp was visible in the lower right corner. September 12th, 2024. A collective gasp rippled through the room. This is evidence of bribery involving the notary, Daniel Foster. My mother bought him off for $5,000 and had him notarize documents with my forged signature. This constitutes a federal felony: bribery and forgery of private documents bearing official seals. That's a lie. It's fabricated. Rachel screamed. Her face was bright red, and she dropped her wine glass. There's no way we'd ever do something like that. Amanda, have you lost your mind? Lost my mind? Then shall we call this fabricated as well? I moved on to the next slide. The restored chat logs filled the large screen. The room froze. All the color drained completely from my mother's face. The next slide is even more interesting. I continued in a flat, emotionless tone. The next slide displayed my credit report. Below it was a list of 5 credit cards opened in my name. My credit score dropped to 450 because Rachel spent over $80,000 using 5 credit cards my mother opened without my consent using my SSN. The slide changed, revealing detailed purchase histories. Four Seasons Maldives, $15,000. Hermes Birkin, $12,000. Tiffany diamond ring, $8,500. And then a screenshot of my sister's Instagram post. Finally, my dream home. If you work hard, dreams really do come true. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And thank God. A contemptuous sigh rippled through the room. Effort? I looked down at my sister. That house, that bag, and that ring, all of it was bought with my money. So what? Rachel suddenly jumped to her feet and screamed shrilly. You're single, Amanda. You don't have a family, no kids. You're just a lonely woman who does nothing but work. You don't even need a 4-bedroom house. We have a future, a life together with Jason. Isn't it obvious that the person in the family who needs it the most should use it? The room froze solid. That wasn't even the logic of a thief. It was nothing more than the delusional rant of a spoiled child. The relatives turned looks of open contempt toward my sister. I looked down at her calmly. Need does not constitute a legitimate reason to violate ownership rights. That's how the adult world works, Rachel. I didn't know. Jason suddenly shouted. I just did what Rachel and Susan told me to do. I didn't know where the money came from. No, Jason, you did know. I displayed the final slide. The memo reconstructed from shredded documents and the chat logs from their shared account. Ah. Jason went deathly pale and collapsed onto the sofa. That's enough. A stern voice cut through the room. My grandmother stood up, driving her cane firmly into the floor. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her expression was as fierce as a wrathful spirit. Susan, Rachel, and Jason, even the word of disappointment is far too gentle for you. Grandma, this isn't what it looks like. It's a misunderstanding. My mother tried to cling to her, but my grandmother struck her away with her cane. Don't touch me. You stole the money I distributed for my granddaughter's future for your own selfish desires. And on top of that, you destroyed Amanda's life. This is not a family matter. It is a crime. At that moment, I heard the sound of sirens approaching from the distance. I had arranged it in advance, timed perfectly with the end of the presentation. It's the police. One of the relatives screamed as they looked out the window. Red and blue rotating lights illuminated the snow-covered yard. Amanda, please stop the police. We're family, aren't we? My mother crawled to my feet, her face a mess of tears and mucus as she begged. I don't want to go to prison. Rachel is still young. I looked down at my mother, the woman who had once been the entirety of my need for approval. But now all I could see was nothing more than a defendant. Yes, we're family. I said it quietly. That's exactly why a fair reckoning is necessary. I will recover the money you stole, and you will receive the punishment you deserve under the law. At that moment, there was a knock at the front door. I turned off the screen and switched on the lights in the room. In the sudden brightness, only my mother's screams and my sister's sobbing echoed through the house. I opened the door. 2 detectives were standing there. Susan Brooks, Rachel Coleman, Jason Coleman, the detective announced coldly. Warrants have been issued for your arrest on suspicion of violations of trust law, fraud, and forgery of private documents bearing official seals. Please come with us. I quietly opened the door fully and let them in. My mother collapsed to the floor, while my sister clung to her husband and wailed, but the detective showed no mercy, placing handcuffs on them and leading them away. After that, a verdict was handed down in a federal courtroom. Susan was sentenced to 36 months in prison, Rachel to 24 months, Jason to 18 months, and the notary, Daniel Foster, to 36 months of incarceration. In addition, all of them were ordered jointly and severally to pay me $1.5 million. The gavel echoed. Everything was over. The luxury mansion at 450 Oak Street, which had been seized, was bought back by my grandmother and transferred to me. 1 year has passed since then. I am now sitting in the living room of that house on Oak Street. The Italian-made sofa that Rachel once bragged about, along with the tasteless chandelier, have all been discarded. The walls have been repainted a calm cream color, and simple furniture suited to my taste has been arranged throughout the space. This is my home, and also my new castle, the Office of Graves Real Estate Appraisal. What happened ended up creating an unexpected reputation within the industry. An exceptionally strict and highly capable appraiser who does not tolerate fraud, even when it involves family. My name spread with that description, and now requests from major banks and investment firms never stop coming in. My annual income has increased 5-fold compared to before, and my once destroyed credit score now proudly shows a perfect 780. My father filed for divorce shortly after the incident, finally breaking years of silence and cutting ties with my mother. He now lives quietly in distant Florida. From time to time, emails arrive from him, filled with apologies and words wishing for my continued success. And on a quiet weekend afternoon, I sit across from my grandmother in front of the fireplace, drinking tea together. Outside the window stretches a carefully tended garden, bathed in gentle sunlight. It's become a wonderful home, Amanda. Yes, the true value of a house is determined by who lives in it and how they choose to live. Real estate is the same as life.